Hello, today I'm going to talk to you about batteries, specifically in a vehicle. We've been having some problems with this particular battery lately. It's not been holding a charge, and typically there's three different things that can cause that to happen. One, either the battery is really old and it won't hold a charge anymore. The second is there's a lot of corrosion around the terminal itself, so it's getting a bad connection. And then the third alternative is the alternator, which is right here, isn't recharging the battery whenever it's being driven. In this particular case, I've already checked the alternator, and it's pushing out a good 14 volts like it's supposed to, so I know it's not an alternator problem. So now we've got two choices here. It's either going to be a bad connection or else it's going to be an old battery. If we look right here, we can see that the date the battery was purchased was on 9/12, which in this case was over 3 years ago, so it's most likely a bad battery. Don't have a new battery with me at the moment, so what I'm going to do is go ahead and clean up the connection, see if that gets me some power back, and if it does, that's great, and we can keep on going. But my guess is it's actually the battery that's out.
A few things I wanted to mention before we get too deep into this project is battery safety. When there's a lot of corrosion on the battery, that can be very harmful to your body, so I advise using gloves. Also, it's important to wear safety goggles that will help keep the particulates off your hands and also out of your eyes. If any acid gets out, it will burn through skin, it'll burn through clothing, so you'll just want to make sure that you're really careful through the whole process. Last thing you want to do is get injured while working on your vehicle. Also, whenever you have the terminals disconnected, be really careful that they don't accidentally touch the battery terminals, because it'll cause sparks to fly, and if you get sparks flying, it's possible that you could get burned or even shocked. So I just wanted to put that reminder out there before you get started.
Alright, so I got my tester out. It's a really nice tester. I don't really have any dials or anything. It automatically detects what I need to test for. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it on. It zeroes it out. I can take my leads now and put them on the battery terminals themselves. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to scratch into the top. What I'm really doing here is I'm scratching away just that film that builds up on the lead over time. That way I know I'm getting right down to the metal itself. So I'm going to do that on both sides, and I'm going to see what the reading is to see how many volts are actually sitting in this battery right now. Alright, so I have it on the tester. It's actually reading 9.6 volts. It should be sitting around 12 volts instead, so the battery is really low. There's no way in the world it's going to turn over the engine with it being that low. A lot of times whenever you turn your key in the ignition, it drops the voltage by about 2 volts because it's trying to crank that engine over, and it's doing a sudden drain on the battery itself. So with that being said, we know it's a battery issue. So I'm going to go ahead and uncouple this battery from the van, and I'm going to take it out, and then I'll go get a replacement a little bit later. One of the things I'm going to do in the meantime, though, is you can see how badly corroded this is. This is a manufacturer provided piece, and they use really cheap materials in order to just make a connection. They don't use a really good terminal holder. So I'm going to replace that with a much better one. It's going to have a much thicker lead casing around it, and it's not going to let as many elements into it. As you can see here, like there's actually like a gap in between here, so it's going to let moisture in there, which is going to cause the buildup like what you see here. So until I actually run up to the store and get another battery and show you that process, I'm actually going to go ahead and replace just this terminal. The other one it looks like it's staying pretty clean, so I'm going to leave it alone for now. If you wanted to, you could go in there and you could actually replace both of them just to make sure that you have good connections on both sides, but it's not totally necessary. But this gunk right here is totally not acceptable. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to clean this up. That way you're aware how to do it. Otherwise you can just skip ahead in the video to the battery replacement if you choose not to replace the terminal holder right there. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is take off both of the connectors right here and right here. That way we're not working with a live battery. Even though it's low, we still don't want to get shocked. Alright, I removed both of the connectors. I have both of them pulled back so they don't come back up and accidentally hit the battery. It'll shoot a lot of sparks if they both connect at the same time. I just used a regular old wrench to pull this off. It's best if you use the enclosed end, and honestly if you have a 6-point instead of a 12-point, that's even better because it'll keep from stripping out the edges on here. This one came off real easy because it wasn't all corroded and everything. The one that was over here was actually a little bit more difficult because it had a lot of corrosion on it. So what I did to help loosen it up is I used some battery cleaner. It's pretty standard. We'll be using it a little bit later to help kind of clean things up on the battery itself. But it helps remove the corrosion that's in place. So I want to go ahead and go to the next step now on cleaning this battery terminal, just so you see what it's like. If you don't have a battery wire brush, you can use a regular one, but I really recommend getting a battery wire brush because it's so much more convenient. It looks about like this. What you'll see here is lots of little wires on the inside of this. So all you have to do is you have to take it and just put it over the top and then rotate it back and forth, and you'll notice one direction goes a little bit easier than the other direction, and that's because the little teeth kind of point in one direction a little bit more than the other, but it's the harder direction going backwards that you kind of want to go with, because that puts more resistance on it to basically it's almost like sandpaper to get the gunk off the terminal. So here we've turned it around, and now you can actually see here how much shinier it is. So it's gotten all the corrosion off the side of the battery. Now on the flip side, if you have one like this, what you do is you can take off this section and it will expose just a wire brush on the inside. And what you can do with that is you can actually go into here and you can clean out all the gunk that's on the inside here. So you would take it, you put it in there, you'd rotate it around and really give it a good scrub all the way around. I'm not going to do it for the entire video here just because you can figure that out on your own. It's not difficult. But we do it to both sides. Make sure we got it cleaned up really well. Like I said, for this video we're going to go ahead and step into the replacement of this terminal connector now. So what we're going to do next is we're actually going to be separating this wire from the connector, and I've got a new connector that I'm going to put on. Mine looks like this. So what will happen is it's just going to fit over the battery. You'll see that it has no holes in it. It's completely made of lead, so it'll have a really good connection there. And then that wire is going to go into this hole right here. So we'll loosen it up so we can get the wire in, and then we'll connect it. Once that's done, we get the new battery, then we'll just slide it on there, and it should be really good and clean whenever we go to actually start using the brand new battery. Alright, as you can see here, I have taken off the old connector that was on the hot side. I'm going to be replacing it now with the new one. What I had to do is cut it off a little bit short because it was really hard to get it off the original connector, but I trimmed it down. Before you do that, you really do want to make sure that it can still reach up and around and connect like it's supposed to. Otherwise, if you get your cable too short, then you've got to go through the whole hassle of extending it, and that's just no fun. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to slide those copper cables right into this slot here, and then I'm going to tighten down these bolts to really hold it in place. Alright, as you can see, I got the new connector put on. I got these bolts tightened way down. They're actually almost flush with the base here. Since I had two wires, I really had to like kind of mesh them in there, but they're completely in there. They're locked in good and tight. So this is completely ready to go. I also went ahead and pulled the battery out. It's kind of gross down here, but it happens. For this particular vehicle, it's really easy to get the battery out. A lot of them have this clamp that sits right here because there's a groove on the bottom of the battery that this kind of fits down into to hold it in place, and it's matched on this side by another little ledge, so it basically locks the base into place. So like I said, on this vehicle it was really easy. All I had to do was loosen this up and it pulled back far enough for me to be able to pull that battery out. Some vehicles are a little bit harder, like there might be like a bunch of like engine or whatever else right here, and sometimes you have to take a longer socket and extender and get down to it to loosen it up in order to be able to get the whole battery out. Alright, so we're going to drop the new battery in. Goes right down in there nice and easy. Right here you can see that this is accepting into that groove that was there before. I might need to move it back just a little bit more. I'll wedge it back, and then I'll get this tightened back down, and then it'll be time to put the connectors onto the battery, and that'll give it power again. And then we should be all good to go, and we'll test everything out to make sure it's working like it's supposed to. Okay, the van's running. We connect it right here. Now the meter is saying that it's at 14.6 plus volts. So like I said, the alternator is working just fine. So in this case it was just a bad battery, and we got to replace the battery, and I also showed you how to put in the better connector. That way we don't have this kind of problem in the future as well. To help extend the life of the battery. And I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you found it useful in your own battery replacement or connector replacement. Thanks for watching.